Whoa.
It's 2 o'clock, so I hereby call to order the July 26, 2023 meeting of the City Prescott of General Plan Committee. Board members present, please say present when I call your name. Gary Warab.
I can't hear anymore, I'm sorry.
Present.
Is that a present? Rob Moyer.
Here, present.
Mary Fredrickson.
Here.
James McCarver.
Present.
Jim Huffman.
Present.
Don Michaelman. Deb Thalassides.
Here.
Terry Sapio.
Here.
And I, Ted Gambogi, are here. So note that Ralph Hess and Andre Carmen are absent. This is an open public meeting and is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public, media, the public, local cable and/or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of board members present is
9.
9, and that will require 5 votes for a majority. All parties wishing to be heard, including committee members, are required to state their name prior to speaking in order to ensure proper recordation. Members of the public are required to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them at a later date if necessary. So with that, we have an open call to the public. Does anyone from the public want to speak?
Yes, we have Jim Helbling.
Hebling, right?
Hello, I'm Jim Helbling. My address is 2411 Alberta Way, Prescott. I've got Robert Shegog here with me. He's a co-member with me of the Martin Luther King Committee for the City of Prescott. I do have some handouts, some takeaways for you guys. So I'm going to pass those around if you don't mind passing them down. So basically the purpose of our visit is to propose to the committee that some wording be included in the general plan stating that the city will not condone discrimination of any kind. And the reason for that is we feel that the city currently is not living up to its moniker of being everybody's hometown. What you'll see on the handout is there's a couple of surveys that were taken of people that live in Prescott and if they are in the surrounding area that were given the opportunity to indicate if they had experienced discrimination, excuse me, while being in Prescott. Robert and I actually put that survey together. There's also a mention of a second survey that was conducted by the Yavapai County Health Services Organization. And so you can see the results of the survey in the handout. Basically, the survey that Robert and I did showed that the majority of the respondents had experienced some discrimination while being in Prescott. There were 247 respondents. And there's some bar graphs that show where the people were from, whether they experienced discrimination, and what kind of discrimination if they did. And then there's also a mention there of the other survey that I mentioned a second ago that was generated by the Yavapai County Health Services that showed 62% of the LGBTQ community were denied health care by healthcare providers in Yavapai County or in the city of Prescott, primarily in the city of Prescott. So based on that information and then also the experiences of members of the Martin Luther King Committee. Yeah.
Which graph is that?
Which one are you talking about? Oh, the health services? There's no graph for that one. There's a bullet at the end. Yeah, there's a bullet below the graphs that says that. I can provide all this data to you if you like. Also, since you mentioned that, there's also comments that were provided with the survey that has the bar graphs associated with it. So you can read the actual instances of discrimination as they were recorded by the person that was responding to the survey. So you can actually read the actual instance of discrimination and how that occurred to the person, which is very eye-opening. So we have that information available to you. But we met with Ted last week, and he suggested that I come today and discuss this with you as an option of being put in the general plan. We did put together some sample wording as just a starting point that I included. I looked at the current general plan, and there's a community quality element in the plan that I think this would fit in nicely. There's an existing subsection that talks to cultural assets. Excuse me. However, what we're proposing is that a subsection titled cultural diversity be added, and then the wording would state, as we provided, that the city has this moniker of everybody's hometown, and the advantage of that is you have an inclusive environment that people want to visit and they want to live in. And in order to fortify that, we make a statement saying that we will not condone discrimination of any kind. Just spell it out right there in the plan so that anybody reading that will know that that is not allowed in our city, that we do not allow that in our city. So, because it is not something that goes along with what we want our city to represent. So I know I only have 3 minutes. I don't know where I'm at with that, but hopefully you guys can look this over, and we would really like to be put on the agenda for a future meeting so I can share more of the information with you. Robert and I can both share information with you relative to what we've done, and talk to you about why we think this is so important for the city to do this.
Thank you, Jim. Question, Gary?
Gary Warb, quick question. Are we legally allowed to respond? No. Okay, I can't talk to you.
Okay.
I have to discriminate.
All right. Nice try. Anyway,
Sir
thanks.
James?
Jim McCarver, so can we make our question a point of clarification on one of his statements?
Yes.
My question is on the bullet about the LGBTQ percentage. I'm a physician, and I'm aware of what's available in the community. And I would wonder if when that survey was done, was the refusal primarily because the provider did not feel it was in their scope of training to provide care for those folks? Or did they just say, shut the door and said, get out of here?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
My feeling would be that, because I know what services are available, that's an area that is, most providers would be uncomfortable with that
Okay.
patient.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't answer that.
And
I can look into that, though.
we'll read these notes into the minutes, and we can evaluate having you come back at a later time to present. I wanted to commend you, though, because in this general plan, we're trying to do a number of things different. For example, in terms of the survey, we have got more responses to date than the 2015 general plan had in total. And I think it's important, if the community is going to vote for this general plan in 2025, that all of the community have an opportunity to present and present issues that we need to consider. So I thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for suggesting it, Ted.
And I'll email you. I have your email.
Yeah, you do. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have any other speakers?
Nope, that's it today.
That's it.
Okay.
So are we at discussion of action items?
Yes.
All right, so has everyone read the June 28th meeting minutes?
Yes.
And we do have somebody has a.
Chairman.
Yes, Mary.
Mary Frederickson. Looking over the minutes, I don't see that there is any recordation of discussion in regard to the airport department's presentation. There is, within the agenda packet, there's copies of the slides that the airport presentation included, but there's no recordation of any discussion between the committee members and the presenter. So I don't know that the minutes are complete enough to move and vote on.
Yes, we'll suggest just to defer them to September meeting, and then we'll have Tori, the admin, look into it, adding more, whatever was discussed about the airport, look into it.
So does that leave us with not approving the minutes today?
Correct, and we'll just suggest deferring them to September, and we'll look into that more.
Mr. Chairman, can I just...
Sir, yes, sir.
This is Jim McCarver. That'll give me, I had two questions about the minutes as we were presented. One was that Mr. Hess had talked about the legality of breaking into small groups, and do we have any response from legal department if that's legal to do that?
If we have time during a meeting, we'll be able to look into that. But there's a way of doing it. We'll just have to agendize it ahead of time.
So that you didn't present that?
We're trying to figure out the logistics of that, how to do that, because of taking minutes and everything. But it's not something that we're planning on anytime in the near future.
The other question was on the responses from the survey that we had. You listed the number. In general, were there any ideas presented or responses in those that we hadn't thought of that really, like, ding, wow, this is a great thing that you can recall?
Another, and we'll come to that later. The responses that we are seeing are pretty what we are expecting. I'm not seeing anything out of the ordinary coming out of the comments we're getting from the public. So we'll defer the minutes to September.
Okay.
Okay.
You mean August?
Yeah, let's vote on it just so we have that. September.
September, we're not the open house, right? I forgot about you.
Okay, yes, would you like to make a motion?
John Michaelman, I move that we deferred the review of the minutes to the next meeting in September.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Okay.
Motion carries. Now we have a presentation from the Water Resources Department.
Yes. Yes.
Good morning, General Plan Committee. Me grab this. Is this good, Tammy? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, well, happy to see you all today. Let me just make sure this is, okay, perfect. Okay, so today we have for you, excuse me, a presentation over the water element presented by the Water Resources Management and Environmental Service Group with the City of Prescott. So with this presentation, we're going to break it up into 4 sections. First section we're going to call the basics. We're going to introduce you to the Water Resources Environmental team here for the city, go over our role in the city, and then go over some basic of the water elements within the general plan. Then we'll move into a comparison of the 2015 general plan and the conditions that we currently have. We'll move into challenges and opportunities, and then we'll wrap up with 5 to 10 year goals as we can kind of see it. So. Okay, so we'll start off with the basics. First off, I'd like to go ahead and introduce you guys to our team. Here today we have representatives from the Water Resources Department and from the Environmental Services Department. We're all under one group within Public Works, and I'll show you a slide on that in a second. But I wanted to introduce a few of the members of the team that are here. First, we have Kay Sito, who's in our Water Resource Management Department. Kay has a number of performs a number of duties for water resources, but she is the head and takes the lead in the city's efforts for water conservation. And second, I wanted to introduce Leslie Gracer. She's also in our Water Resource Department. Leslie has been with the city for quite a while. I think a lot of you know her and have conversed with her over the years. Leslie has taken the lead efforts in working through our modified decision and order through Arizona Department of Water Resources for our assured water supply. Leslie is also the staff liaison for the mayor's commission. And let me make sure I say this right, but the mayor's commission on thank you. Water policy and monitoring. So, and those are all conservation, the decision and order, and the mayor's, we call it ad hoc committee, are all big critical items when it comes to updating the 2015 general plan. So, and then I also wanted to, Matt Killian is here, and he is, he's our environmental specialist for the city of Prescott. He's in the environmental services group. Matt is, he oversees the city's MS4 program, and this program is the monitoring program through ADEQ, which is ultimately overseen by EPA and the Clean Water Act to ensure that all of our water sources that can get to all of the water that can get to our water sources are cleaned and being monitored and inspected on a regular basis. So that's the team that we have here, and they'll be happy to answer any questions as we move forward through this. Please feel free to stop me at any point in time and just ask questions. If you feel like you just rather wait till the end, that's fine too. So we'll do this casually, and we'll just provide you the information here we think is important on the water element. Okay, so this is a slide that kind of just shows the bubble diagram of this City of Prescott Public Works Department. Water Resources Environmental Services was formed into a new group in January of 2023, and myself, Brian Reese, I'm lucky enough to be the manager of that group for the city, and I'm also the newest member of this team. So my team has helped me out and bring me up to speed with all the issues and relevant history on water here at the City of Prescott. Okay, moving on into the general plan water resources element. What's in the water resources element is covered over Arizona state statute. You can see the number there. And Arizona state revised statute says that the water element has to address the following. Known legal, physical, and available surface waters, groundwater, and effluent supplies. The demand for water that will result from future growth projected in the general plan in consideration of the existing usage, and an analysis on how the demand for water that will result from future growth projected in the general plan will be served by the water supply identified, and if necessary, additional water sources necessary to meet those ends. Sorry. Continue on. General plan shall consist of a statement of community goals and development policies, all pertinent maps, figures, all information needed in order to be able to project those community goals, and a land use element. So the general plan is issued through our community development department. It's their document, and it's land use driven. So the city needs to know what it's going to do with its general plan area and how that land's going to be allocated. Residential, commercial, industrial, all those applications, and any other unique applications that apply to this specific municipality. get this right eventually. Okay, so next slide here, we got a map up of the surrounding area. Just wanted to see, does anybody know what the black boundary along this represents? The black boundary around the area? Okay, so a number of you, Prescott AMA? Okay, very good. And who regulates the Prescott AMA?
ADWR.
ADWR, excellent, excellent. Yeah, so that's exactly right. So we're in an active management area. This active management area was established with the 1980 Groundwater Management Act. It consists of approximately 485 square miles, elevation ranging from 4,400 to about 7,800 feet in elevation, precipitation from around 13 to 25 inches per year, and with groundwater depths varying from surface level down to about 500 feet. It is estimated that there's about 2.9 million acre feet of storage within the active management area. Yes?
Don Michaelman, how do you estimate 2.9 million acre feet of water?
Of water. So groundwater modeling. And Leslie was probably can speak up in more detail on it, but we, as part of our assured water designation, have done groundwater modeling as part of one of the requirements from ADWR to show that we can, when we get our water allotment, we not only have to say this is how much water is available, we have to show how much was in the ground through some physical hydrologic modeling. And then we have to show that we're able to take this water from the ground and get it to our the citizens and for its usage. So the infrastructure is there. We have to be able to show that we have the legal capability of doing that. Nobody else had claim to this water. And we have to be able to show that we have the financial means to do so. So groundwater modeling is a big part of what we do in order to establish what the supplies available to us are.
So the modeling is determined by ADWR versus us?
Well, I think ADWR does have a model that they did, and we've also, I think, created models for various situations within for our own usage. And we'll kind of probably get into that a little bit, but for transport water of the Big Chino, we were involved in creating models to justify and quantify that supply. So, but yes, ADWR does create the modeling for our AMA. I think they create it for all the AMAs around the state.
What's the date on the 2.9 million?
That was my question, yeah.
Leslie, would that go back to 2009, a time frame for the last DNO, maybe 2007 when it started?
Don't do this hollering from the crowd business. Good afternoon, Leslie Grazer, Public Works. So that number is embedded in probably an earlier modeling that was done by the department. So probably like 2006, 7, somewhere in there. They're on like their 5th generation of a groundwater model, but they don't necessarily place that kind of information in their documents anymore, the text part. So we had to pull that from a little bit earlier.
This is a 6th generation, you said?
I think they're on the 5th generation. So the first model was developed in 97.
Okay, and what, in 97?
95.
What number, how many million acre feet was in 97?
I honestly don't know. And I don't think they necessarily stated it. They started to find out that was a challenging one to defend long-term. But it gives you a rough idea. So we pull from documents and source it. We don't guess. We just use their documents.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yes, I have a question too.
Yes.
Terry Sapio. This may be farther into your presentation, but obviously the amount of water available, how fast it's being used, how much is being replenished, that's a question that almost everybody in the Prescott AMA is interested in. So do you have numbers as to like how long would that last? How much is it going down? How fast is it going down? Is it being replenished? How much is replenished? Do you have answers to that interest from the community?
We're going to broach that subject today, but
Okay.
no, I don't have. I'm not going to be able to answer for you today exactly how much water is in the ground for us at this point in time. But we're gonna be talking about that subject and what it's going to take in order to get to that point where we can make those type of estimates and make good decisions based on the information that we have. Yes, got it right. Okay. So on this slide right here, we're showing the Prescott water allocation as conferred by the Arizona Department of Water Resources in our 2009 decision and order. So this is our legal document from Arizona Department of Water Resources that that we worked with in order to show them that we could that we physically and all of those things I talked about before, with all of those requirements, that we can meet satisfy those requirements, and we can have this water in our allocation. So kind of going over the groundwater aspect of it, water in the ground. What do we have a legal right to? 9466 acre feet per year. We have our alternative water, and you can see that that's broken into 4 different sources. Altogether, 7,441 acre feet per year. Includes our direct effluent supplies, our treated effluent supplies that goes into recharge and recovery, long-term storage credits, and our surface water supplies. So surface water supplies being the water directly from Watson and Willow, that are routed to our recharge basins and then discharged into the aquifer, and we get credit for that.
One second. Leslie's taken me through this a number of times. This is a great chart, but I've only seen this chart. Is there one for Chino Valley and one for Dewey Humboldt and one for Prescott Valley?
Well, this is us as an assured water supplier.
Right. This says we have a 100-year supply.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And
so,
and that could merely mean that in 100 years we'd have no water.
no, it actually means that we showed that within 100 years, we would not deplete the aquifer down below a certain threshold.
Okay.
I think it's about 1,000 feet.
So has anybody ever seen Prescott Valleys or Dewey Humboldts or Chinos?
And I'm going to bring Leslie up again because she's dealt with this. They're not an assured water supply, so maybe she can help us understand what their requirements are. Do they?
Good afternoon, Leslie Grazer. So you just answered the question, is we're the only designated water provider, so we go through this process with the state. The other communities work through certificates of assured water supply, which are brought by the developer themselves to that community. So what their portfolio looks like, they don't disclose it like we do. They don't have it in a legal document.
Thank you,
That helps.
Leslie.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, so moving on to our second segment, comparison of 2015 general plan and current conditions. So what we've got here is, this is a graph that was made available to us through ADWR. They do monitoring throughout the entire state, and this particular monitoring was for our Chino Valley well number 2. So it shows you starting, and I apologize if it's a little hard to read, but I'll go ahead and read the numbers for you. The graph starts in 1941 and then moves into present. And you can see, and then on the vertical axis, it shows you the depth to groundwater at various times in the years. So concentrating on the right-hand portion of the graph from 2015 to 2023, you can see that the aquifer has been shown to be in steady decline. However, the steepness of that decline has been reduced over the years from previous uses when the main usage of the water was for other aspects other than the city's uses. So, and this kind of gives you an idea of how the water is being monitored through this one well system, and kind of perspective of that 9,000 plus acre feet that we have allotted for our groundwater at this point.
So the data points tend to group, except for a couple of years, and I can't read it, where you take some major dips.
Yeah.
What's the explanation for those dips?
Yeah, so the dips before 1995, agriculture was a major use. And so agriculture would pull down a lot of water in a short period of time, and then there would be bounce back.
One question here, Jim McCarver.
Yeah.
We have more than one well.
Yes.
Are they all monitored?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are they all monitored, and do they show a similar decline in the groundwater levels?
I think we have monitoring for all the wells. This is just a representative of the one, and I think in general, yeah, there's a decline in the aquifer throughout the years is the basic general trend at this point in time.
Don Michaelman, how many wells do we have in Chino?
5 wells.
And Chino gets their water from the same source we're getting our water in those 5 wells?
Yeah, well, Chino, we provide water to Chino Valley, and yeah, so I'll let Leslie kind of describe the details of how it works with Chino Valley. It's a little
Do
complicated.
you want to just sit up here, Leslie?
No.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets complicated. No, just kidding. So the town of Chino Valley has their own service area, and they do have some wells that they use. But then, as Brian stated, we do provide water to some land and water users up there. So we do have a mix, and that will probably where you start hitting up in here, you'll see that our service area extends up into Chino Valley. But they also have a lot of exempt wells serving them. They also have their own system serving them. And they have a few private water companies up there as well. So we have a mixed bag going on up on the aquifer is carrying a lot of people, it's carrying the activity here, and it's carrying us down here because we don't have strong aquifer material in that area.
So we know how much water we take out of the wells.
Yes.
And we can see how much it's going down, but we have really, no idea what the city takes, what the private wells up there take either. And there's no coordination between the two entities?
Let's go back to this is an active management area that's regulated by the Department of Water Resources. So everybody needs to report their usage. If you're a non-exempt well, meaning a larger pumping well, like a production well like the city has, the exempt wells, they rough estimate those wells as to how much they're using. And to your kind of earlier question, like how do you know what everybody's using? The state does have what's called an overdraft dashboard, and you can look at everybody's data, the stuff that's required to be reported, as well as the information they have to rough in, based on how many exempt wells are out there and roughly how much they might use. Does that help a little bit?
How many wells? Does this answer the question, how many wells are well points?
Those are just the wells they used for that study. So they have what's called a groundwater site inventory database, and they have folks that come out and measure every well they can possibly get. They also have what's called index lines, and those are ones they come back and repeat measure every year. So once again, you have a lot of activity. I'll go back to the chairman.
Thank you.
Ted Felicitas. So I'm looking at the map with the red line, and everything within the red line is the AMA, right?
The red line is the general boundary line as of 2015.
Okay. So I guess my question, and I think it's follow-up to Don, is the folks that are outside the AMA, they're also drawing from the Little Chino, correct?
The folks outside the AMA?
So this is the entire
Yeah.
AMA.
Oh, okay, okay.
And there's a sub-basin line, it starts here, and it cuts through here. So this is the Little Chino Aquifer, and this is the Upper Agua Fria. So predominantly like Prescott Valley's pulling from here.
Okay.
And then everybody above this brown line is pulling using this aquifer material here. But yeah, you have, your group has an interesting job, and we have an interesting job, is that you're looking within the red. But we know, as water resources, that we serve all the way out to Chino. So how we bridge that gap, we'll have to work on that.
We're all sipping from the same bucket.
In this area, yes, we're all using
Yeah.
the same supplies, and then.
The Agua Fria is separate.
Predominantly going to be
Okay.
pulling from here.
Did-
Although they.
Can you speak? Could you get the mic?
I get that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have given it to you. So, yeah, did everybody catch that?
The ranches that are outside the AMA, particularly to the north, they're also pulling from the same aquifer.
No, it's a different aquifer.
Ah, okay.
So, looking at this map too, we brought this in just for a little visual representation, and Leslie did a good job of describing it. Blue areas are service area, so you can see it's a little disconnected in certain areas. And we covered everything else, but one of the big points out of this is that this is the general boundary plan as we have it today. So if that general plan boundary changes, then we need to understand that too in the water element, because we're going to get into a few points of why it's important to understand the general boundary and have good information about how that is going to develop in the future.
Gary, you have a question?
Gary Warab. So I'm really curious, do you have a map of where the monitoring wells are and the data from that?
We have maps available. I don't have one here today. Yeah, so is at the ADWR's website. Yeah, they have like a GIS portal, and you can pull down from the entire state. If you have like the well, if you know like the well number, you can just add it in, but you can also just kind of zoom into a various area and then just click on a well. It'll bring up various information, and one of the things you can do is pull hydrographs from that.
Well, for my purpose, and I was going to wait till Matt's presentation, I think it's extremely important that we understand where our water is coming from and going to, and not where it's going to and for what reasons for the future of our water. And I'll give you an example. There are places now that are highly devoted to putting gabions and rock weirs in the stream beds to slow the water down, to stop the amount of siltation and get more water where it needs to go into the aquifer. I have no idea where this is, but I'm going to propose in the future, especially when Matt talks, that be explored, because it's working everywhere else.
I think Matt's going to be prepared. He's speaking in September,
Right.
and I think he's going to be prepared to talk in a lot more detail about those aspects of stormwater management,
Yeah.
and green stormwater infrastructure.
Because
Yeah, and which we were going to broach a little bit today, but I was going to defer the bulk of the detail to Matt, as it is his area. Yeah.
And I know Matt's already there, but I think it's important that we know that we have the aquifer protection fee, which is a misnomer. It was the watershed improvement fee, and that's my understanding. We're about $2 million. I'd like more definition of that, because if it is to protect the aquifer, we're not doing a really good job, and I want to talk about it in the future.
For the benefit of the public, they may watch this later. Could you give us that website again where you could check?
Yeah.
Well, it was ADWR's website. I don't have the exact pathway. Do you, Leslie?
Here we go. www.azwater.gov. www.azwater.
That's it? azwater.gov?
Yep, that simple.
And where do we go to for it?
Then you need to go to, they have online databases you can use. And I think we'd be happy just to email it out to you, the direct link. Would that make sense, so that you don't have to?
That'd be great. Thank
So
you.
we'll follow up with your staff liaison. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Okay, next slide here is a representation of the surface water components of our DNO. So this represents the water recharge rates that we have from Watson and Willow through the years 2014 to the years of 2022, and it kind of just shows you those rates. And as would be expected, they vary from year to year based on the weather, the amount of moisture that we had moving in. So,
But if you were to draw a straight line, I would suggest it's on the incline, right?
yeah, it would seem that way, but I'd caution between just the years of 2014 and 2022 of making any real projections in a small sample like that. Again. Okay, and then this graph here kind of brings in the effluent supplies. So you can see the effluent supplies, and I believe this is direct effluent and our recharge effluent put together and compared side by our surface water sources over the same time period. 2015 to 2022 kind of outlined here, so we can kind of see what's going on in this period.
What causes the variation in
Water usage, I'd say, again, a lot of times, one of our biggest usage of water is outdoor water usage, landscaping. Oh, that's true. So, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, Leslie.
So data is tricky because you break it down in different ways. And so we want to be really clear. This is the water that we're delivering to the recharge facility. So there, even though it comes out of it goes back to the plant, we clean it up, it leaves the plant. Some of that is going to go to direct delivery and be gone. Another chunk of it is going to go towards the recharge facility. So that's how the split is looking here, is we're just looking solely at deliveries, metered at the recharge facility, if that helps. And the point I think that we're looking at here is that surface water fluctuates, and it's based on our precipitation patterns, things like that. So some years it's going to be really high, and some years it's going to be really low. And some of it's because of we have conservation pools on the lakes. And so if we don't get a lot of rain or snowpack, then we're going to hold those recreational levels to where, we call them conservation levels, but they're for recreation, so we don't go to dead pool in those reservoirs. And then you'll see that effluent's a little more predictable to some extent.
So basically, in the years where it drops, you're just recharging less. You might be doing more direct.
Right. Might be a really dry year, and so more has to go to the golf course to meet their needs.
So Brian or Leslie, what percentage of water that you're taking from April to November actually goes into recharge coming from Watson and Willow?
That's a good question. I don't know if I know exactly the percentage. You mean the percentage of the volume of the lake?
No. Yeah, well, the water that you're either flowing over or that you're opening the spillway, the ductwork, what percentage of that hits the stream actually goes to recharge, and what percentage disappears?
I don't know if I have an exact percentage. There might have been some study, but the city did do did change the infrastructure there to put a lot of piping in, which really helped increase the amount of or reduce the amount of evaporation and losses from that recharge facility. I could take a look at that and see if maybe our water operations group has any studies or anything like that might show what those loss rates are, but I don't have that number on the top of my head. One of the things, too, that occurs to me, though, in your question about effluent variation, and I think this is an important part of it, is that there's a certain amount of inflow and infiltration that goes into the sewer systems. And so depending on how wet a year we have and what the groundwater levels are, it can actually influence quite substantially how much water is getting to the effluent. Okay, and then this one right here just shows a line that represents the combination of surface water sources and effluent, just to give you an idea of how much total water was going to the recharge basins during those years. And it should be understood that this does not account for evaporation at this point. So this is the water that reaches the recharge basins in total. And then calculations are made in order to determine how much is lost through evaporation and other loss sources. Okay, so now we're going to move into what's been implemented from the 2015 general plan. Okay, so the 2015 general plan had a number of goals for the water element. So we're going to go through those and then strategies within those goals. So we'll go ahead and go over those one by one. So goal 1, provide a water source sufficient for the city to implement this general plan. Strategy 1.1, develop a long-term water management plan. At this point, not implemented. We have collected the data repository in order to complete that plan work, but we still at this point have not completed a long-term management plan. So that's one big, very critical component of the GP that I think we're going to be hitting on for the rest of this presentation pretty hard.
Now, does that afford us the consideration to have it in the 2025 plan?
So, I'm sorry, could you say that again?
You had it in the 2015 plan, we haven't done it.
Yes.
Can we get it in the 2025 plan and get it done?
I think that's a major, major goal of the water element for this update.
Because water is a topic of conversation every day here.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Strategy 1.2, annual review of the city's water budget and balance new allocations within available resources in accordance with the city management plan. Partially implemented. We have records from different time periods. Then water policies changed. Different accounting mechanisms were put in place. And some of those records started to not be as strong as they were in past. Right now, I know that the city is actively trying to put a list together of all of the water allotments created over the past 5-6 years, and get those records so that they're solid throughout. And we're working on that right now. Strategy 1.3, reduce loss and unaccounted for water through monitoring, more accurate reporting and system improvements. I wouldn't say that we've implemented any procedures, but it is noted that in 2021 that the city noted a decrease in the percent loss through the ADWR reporting. And through our annual ADWR reporting, we've seen consistent, at least for the past 2 or 3 years, in that loss reduction. So I think it's a strategy that we need to look more into and try to provide some metrics to obtain those goals in the future. Strategy 1.4, continuously seek, evaluate, and implement additional measures of the city's conservation program. I would say implemented on this particular one. Rebate program updates were codified in 2016, 2019, 2021, and 2022. So I think conservation is one of the things we've focused on, and we need to continue to focus on, but I think there's a number of other things that we need to look at with this update.
How do residents become aware of rebate programs?
Well, we try to do it through multiple ways. We've been doing social media messaging over the summer to make people aware of conservation habits and practices, and also try to inform them of our conservation website that was created just recently, actually just earlier this year, through a grant through ADWR, a matching grant. So we have that website that's devoted totally to water conservation. Strategy 1.5, maintain water rate structure aligned to conservation. Implemented, I think we've been strong on conservation over the last, for the last period, adopting ordinances to increase the tier rate structure for water usage has been a major reason why our per capita water use has been going in the down direction instead of the up direction for the most part.
Now, we have ordinances that if there's a new development, the developer must use native species.
Yes, in the water policy, there's an ordinance that there's a drought water tolerant list of planting that needs to be followed for landscaping.
As I've been walking around neighborhoods, I'm seeing things like aspen trees and green grass. So the developer doesn't put them in, but the resident can then put that in, correct?
Yes, I mean, we'd have to construct some type of inspection program if you're going to inspect after a landscape is put in. So yeah, people have their choices, but that's kind of the important reason to have an educational aspect go on, so that you can let people understand the importance of water conservation. And we also understand that different people have different uses for water. I mean, there's, one family and another family have different needs. If you have children, if you don't have children, the size of your lot, all these things. So one of the messaging we've been trying to add, looking at pushing through the public is, to do your part. Do your part in what you can do in terms of water conservation. Maybe for you it means, energy efficient appliances and things of that nature. Versus for somebody else, maybe it means removing some turf and going to drought tolerant planting because it makes more sense, for your particular, lifestyle. So. Okay, goal number 2, optimize the use of effluent resource component. Yes.
Hopefully I wasn't falling asleep. Can we go back to
Sure.
goal 1, that last element?
I think I can go back. Okay.
Nope,
Oh, sorry.
other way.
There we go.
Here we go. The federal mandates in regard to contaminants.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss that? I think I did.
I think so. Can you speak to what the status is on the forever chemical issue?
In general, Steve Alfer is our water, is our utility, utility manager for the city. He gives monthly updates to the water issues subcommittee on where we're at in terms of the monitoring and the city's direction in trying to understand what they're going to do. I don't really want to give any specifics on this. It's not my area. I know the city is moving forward. I know they're awaiting on a second reading of the measurable quantities that need to be that are going to be used as a standard. And we're working towards those things. I know that, I can tell you that at this point, what is it, well number 5 is out of commission at this point because we are not able to provide the testing that shows that the forever contaminants, PFAS, are within the required range at this point in time. And I know that the city is working on various alternatives. I think we were in the midst of having a consultant look at various alternatives that we could do in the future and what those costs would be in order to bring well number 5 back online and figure out what we're going to do moving forward.
There was a recent news article that came out about a recent discovery that you can treat the water and take pretty much all the contaminants out of it. Are we looking into that, or is that under your purview?
Not under my purview at this point. I'm going to defer that to Steve. Like I said, he does give monthly updates at the Water Issues Subcommittee, where he talks in front of that committee and lets know what's going on. But we'd be happy to get you any information if you wanted to just shoot me a quick email or after the meeting, then I'll be able to follow up for you on where they might be on those types of strategies.
Question. If I understood you correctly, you said well 5, we're not using well 5 now because of contaminants?
Yes.
Is well 5 coming out of the Little Chino aquifer?
Yes.
So how would one well be contaminated and the next well over is not?
Yeah, it's a mind-boggling thing, but these contaminants come from various sources. The migration and the movement of the groundwater below it might pull sources from one area and not from another area. Again, I'm a little bit out of my expertise range on this, but we can, like I said, if you want to send me any questions you might have, I'll be able to. Oh, yeah.
I think we need to clarify. So it's Airport 5.
Yeah, Airport 5.
Not, so we have Chino wells 1 through 5, and then we have Airport's numbering system as well. So the issue is at Airport 5, which is in, obviously, here, not obviously, apologize. You don't need, but our wells are predominantly here, and Airport 5 is going to be right off of like this area in here. So it's different aquifer material.
Ted?
Thank you. Gary?
Since the mayor is here, I think you spoke to it once before. Are we in the midst of litigation over the contaminants?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware of the of any litigation at this point in time. So I'd have to defer to somebody else to speak of that.
He's shaking his head yes.
The answer is yes. We're a party to a multi-district lawsuit that was generated out of Tennessee, so we joined that. So I think they're at the point of some pretty substantial settlement, which should generate some income for us to maybe be able to pay for some of the additional mitigation that we could do, right? I mean, right now, probably the most likely source would be activated charcoal. But there's this is a multi-billion-dollar problem. And with that, I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in the area about how best to contain these and then dispose of them. One of the problems is you put media in there and you trap this contaminant, and then what do you do with it? You can't burn it. You can't put it in a landfill because you just contaminate something else. So I think this is going to be an evolving technology, but probably in the short run, it looks like activated charcoal might be able to do something for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. Okay, so going on to goal number 2, optimize the use of effluent resource components. Strategy 2.1, maximize recharge of renewable resources, treated effluent, and surface water. Yes, I think we implemented those. We're utilizing our water, our surface water resources in an efficient manner, and I think we have a good understanding of how they can be used. Strategy 2.2, seek extension of sanitary sewers into areas presently served by septic or other alternative disposal systems where feasible to increase return flow of reclamation of water to reclamation plants. So in this one, this is more complicated. We had the Mayor Commission on Unsewered Areas recently in 2020 produced a study which this map that's shown up here on the screen comes from. It shows by the red dots, it shows the areas of lots that are being that are utilizing city water at this point, but are not connected up to a sewer line. And this is a goal that we probably will be looking at further as we're doing the update to the general plan. It's a significant challenge. Most of the way that the city is structured is new infrastructure is paid by development fees and is paid by development and growth for the most part. A lot of these areas here are concentrated in areas that are already developed. So the funding mechanisms are not set up to supply this type of infrastructure. We'd have to see about what other ways of doing it there are. But it's probably something that's worth investigating.
That looks like a lot of red dots. Do you have a quantitative measure what percent of the water that we use goes through those red dots and therefore it doesn't get reclaimed?
I'd have to go into that study in more detail to see if I could find that number out, but I don't have it at this point in time, but I think we might be able to deduct that number from it.
Because I'm wondering, if that's where water's going and we're not, and it's all in the septic tanks afterwards, if you knew how much water is going in and you used other systems, you could approximate what effluent you could get back, right?
Yeah, I think
So
you
is
can
there
work that number backwards.
could you apply a numerical value to the effluent you get back?
A numerical value in terms of
How much is it worth to get that? Let's say the red represents 20% and the effluent coming back is 15%. Is there a monetary value to that 15%?
Well, I think we could, definitely look at monetizing that value, or at least doing a cost-benefit of analysis on what it means to the community to
I'd like to
provide
address
this
that.
infrastructure. Yes.
In 2006, when I moved to Prescott, 3 days later, I addressed council and insisted that the city engineers come to my neighborhood and give an evaluation of what it would cost per household to run a sewer line, regardless of the cost of the lateral. At that point, it was $60,000 per household. That was a lot of years ago. Now I'm sure it's somewhere near 80,000 to 100,000. So we're not talking about that cost factor here. I want to talk about it. I also want to ask Leslie, because this came up the last meeting and I need clarification. The city is requiring that when someone hooks up to city water, they have to abandon their well. And could you clarify, I think you said that those wells then regenerate into the aquifer? Is that a true statement?
So this is Leslie Grazer. The question about exempt wells and the requirement is, we have several issues going on there, is that we don't want to have a backflow situation into our system based on somebody being connected to our system and having their well, plumbed as well. So that's step, number one, and that's kind of outside of my area. But for my area that I've worked in over the years is that our decision in order of a served water supply says that when we start serving someone who is on a well, city water, that well is abandoned, and then we can apply that to an added volume to our portfolio.
So you're taking that assumption that there's a measurement there that you can show can come back for Prescott. So my question is, taking that assumption, why don't you, and I have to tell you, I have a huge background in designing and implementing programs for sewer septic. Through Jack Wilson, I started the sewer septic committee in 2009, and we did lots of workshops for the public. I think there's a tremendous misconception of a properly run septic system. If you ask any, or JT Septic or any major septic professional, they'll tell you that is recharged. And so I'm questioning, my original question earlier was, where are the monitoring systems for Prescott? Because I've only heard assumptions rather than fact. And I would like the fact of, though there is recharge from septic, and it is clean water if the septics are properly done. Why would anyone want to penalize someone up to $100,000 in the cost of a lateral than the monthly cost, when perhaps they're doing a benefit in themselves, but you don't have data for that?
Well, I guess it's something that this group can explore if you want that as part of your general plan. We're mixing things a little bit, I think. We were talking exempt wells, and then we were talking septic tanks. The septic tanks are pretty much going into the capillary zone. It's not like it's a direct feed, and a lot of these are on fractured bedrock in different places. So there's been plenty of studies, I think, done related to what you might return to an aquifer system. But once again, this area of the city, we're not really on aquifer material. There's a reason why we pump out here where the aquifer material is and bring in enough supply for the city. So let's take your question and think about it some more and see what we can do.
That's why I'm waiting for Matt's, because a lot of this is relevant to what his expertise is. But I think there's an unfairness, and has been for quite a while. Some of the public assumes that septics are really bad things. And when done properly, a good septic system is better than any sewer system.
So it's perspective, again, I think, on a lot of things that we discuss as a community. So where are you coming from? So if we look at it in terms of the decision order of assured water supply, it works better in a regulatory fashion if we connect more people to the system versus having them stay on a septic.
Well,
now, is that the good thing for everybody? No. So this, as I said, this is a much bigger discussion probably than your meeting here today, but I think we've noted it so that we can explore it with you, and Matt can explore it with you a little bit more, not just you, all of you as a commission.
Yeah. But again, from my background, which has been very involved in water and communities, I'm really appreciative the governor of Arizona just mandated that all new developments must do alternative water. And we're not talking about that right now. That needs to come up to discussion. I brought it up about gabions and weirs in our systems. I was part of a group that designed a plan for the watershed and the lakes here to maximize water. We brought in a representative from SRP who said, I don't understand the Prescott system. The water on the upstream side of the dam is yours. Do whatever you want with it. Yet I asked before what percentage is actually going to recharge. The rest disappears. Why are we not maximizing our water and maximizing our potential for more waters without penalizing people financially and otherwise?
Now, all subjects that I think this conversation is a kickoff meeting for the general plan update. And those are the things that we can investigate, analyze, and then try to make the best decision for the community. And then that's all put into the general plan so that we can move forward on it. Okay. Goal number 3, augment city water supplies. Strategy 3.1, seek additional water resources and reduce depletion of local groundwater resources and contribute to the achievement of safe yield for the active management area. Not implemented with the caveat that we have acquired imported supplies from Big Chino Subbasin. Obviously, we have not tapped into that water supply at this point, but utilization of that water, I think, needs to be addressed in the long-term management plan and in the general plan. Strategy, one way or the other, whether we're going to use it or not.
So 3.1 is the Big Chino.
For the most part, we don't have any other imported water sources at this point in time. So yeah,
do we have,
it could also look at other additional water resours.
Do we have
if they were available.
Number for tapping the Big Chino?
We have an allocation from ADWR.
No,
just
I
over
don't mean
8,000.
the water. I mean the dollars.
we are working on that at this point in time. Council just voted to pass or execute the contract for updating the cost estimates for the well field and for the infrastructure. Strategy 3.2, develop funding strategies to finance new water sources and technologies. Here we just got this note here is just a note on kind of the history that happened with the, when Big Chino was part of our capital improvement projects at one point in time. We had assessed an impact, we had done an impact analysis, and we had it in our plan. Legislative changes in 2011 said that you're going to have to use the water within a time frame that, at the time it was projected, we were not going to be able to use that money to build that infrastructure in that time frame, so it was removed from that plan at that point. But again, I think it's something that we need to evaluate and make a decision on how we're going to move forward with that. If it's long-term management plan is going to go a long way in evaluating what our current situation is, what our future situation is going to be requiring, and making the right decisions on which water supplies we're going to, in which way we're going to be able to account for the supplies that we need. Strategy number 3, track literature and technologies that resulted in proven methods to increase water supply. For the most part, I don't think we've really been looking at that, so I think it's something that we need to kind of really scrutinize and determine if it's an actual strategy we want to move forward with, and if so, how we're going to implement that. Strategy 3.4, operate city-owned lakes to balance storage for surface water recharge and recreational values. Implemented at this point. Further work can be done on it, definitely. One of the things that we're looking at doing over the next, well, hopefully within the next year, is looking at a comprehensive study of the reservoirs and the upstream hydrology, and looking at the aspects of flood control and how it impacts the reservoir levels, and incorporate that into both acting as a water supply, as a recreational, and as a flood control facility, and try to optimize the usage on all 3 of those fronts. Goal number 4, increase public information availability, awareness, and involvement in water management. Implemented, sort of. I think we got we've done good things in various stages. I think on the right-hand side of the screen, you see this pamphlet that was created for a program that was started called Water Smart Drop by Drop. And this was an educational program that was implemented for about a year in the city. I know these things are very small to read, but every month there would be a series of educational seminars provided to the public on, where historically did Prescott get its water supply from? Where do we get it from now? What are the challenges? What are our regulations? What does ADWR have measurable requirements that we have to meet, those type of things. So I think it is definitely worthwhile to try to implement those things back in, get the public aware of all that information so they can make better choices, make informed choices. In terms of our water conservation, we've kind of switched off of education a bit and kind of worked more into water conservation. And I think we've done a good job with that. If you can go to the water conservation webpage, you can get through it through our the city webpage is going to water conservation, and it's a webpage that deals with indoor, outdoor water usage. It references many other pages for educational information for children, teachers, adults. And it's a direct link to our rebate program, which is probably one of our stronger things that we've accomplished over the past. It's been strong. It's been strong in the community for a while, but I think we've been doing the right thing by growing it and growing that incentive program. And we're seeing year by year, we're seeing more and more money that we're giving out to the rebate program, and we're estimating more and more water saved from that. So Goal number 5, maintain precipitation in regional water resources and management efforts. Or excuse me, maintain participation in regional and water resource management efforts. So strategy 5.1, jointly formulate a plan to achieve safe yield within the Prescott AMA with other jurisdictions. We have here referenced final report from the Upper Verde Coalition, dated from March 24th, 2010. Prescott's no longer a member of that coalition at this point in time. We're trying to see what we can do to get involved with our community partners. But even this, you can see a date of March 24th, 2010 means we haven't been super active in this. Something that we definitely need to kind of see if we can find measurable goals that we could prescribe to the general plan and kind of give us a path forward on how to achieve some of these things. 5.2, partner with other jurisdictions and contribute resources where necessary for development of feasible intergovernment water management programs. Really not implemented at this point. We don't really have any measurable way of acknowledging that we've done this. Work with regional partners to influence and modify Arizona state water laws and regulations that are significantly important to the city and the AMA. I think we're on track with that. We've implemented that. We have various organizations that we have that we participate in and utilize to monitor those specific aspects. So.
A second. Tammy, do we have Prescott Valley's general plan? Does it address water?
I'll look at it. I have a copy of it.
And what about Chino? Yeah.
They're in the process.
They're in the process of their.
So challenges and opportunities, and I think I need to kind of start speeding this up a little bit. So, yes.
Deb Thalassides, so which group in the city is responsible for stormwater? Is that your group?
Yes, Matt Killian is our environmental specialist, and he has an employee, stormwater specialist under him, Ryan Osborne. And yes, they are.
Will your presentation be dealing with anything that you're looking at on the horizon as far as stormwater management?
Well, in September, in September, it'll definitely be detailed out with stormwater management and some of those aspects. So I'm just going to I'll briefly hit, well, you can see them right there. There's a couple of the opportunities there, and we're going to talk about them briefly. But yeah, Matt will have a lot more information regarding those subjects coming up in September. Okay, challenges. City is in an active update in its decision and order of assured water supply with ADWR. We need to get through that process in order for us to understand what our allocations are going to be. That way we have the numbers that we can utilize to create both the systems and implement our long-term water management plan strategy. The general plan area is currently zoned RE2, but it is understood the density will be greater when annexed. So a lot of the land area that's the general plan will pull in is usually coming from the county. It's usually zoned in 2 acres or 1 lot per 2 acres. And we know that when we see annexations come in, a lot of times it's because development is going to come in and it's going to develop at a much reduced a much higher density. So that's a challenge. That's something that we have to try to bridge as best as we can. We don't have any crystal ball in order to do that, but working through community development as best we can to understand the final general plan area and to see if we can make some good assumptions on how that land is going to be developed will go key in order to putting that information into our modeling systems and our software so that we can project out what our future use is going to be. Future physical supplies, yes, definitely a challenge. What's needed, establishing what we're going to need and how we're going to pay for it. emerging contaminants and where they'll be discussed in the 2023 general plan. It's definitely something that we're going to have to evaluate and put some thought in, so that we can deal with them and make the best decisions or be ready when they come up, because it's really about being ready when they come up. Continued drought and reduction in Colorado River water supply. I just put this on here because it's not just our internal use of water that impacts us. It's a statewide phenomenon, and I think it's important to understand that, when water sources or water supplies are reduced for other parts of the state, it could have an impact on us. And if we're not ready for those by doing the thinking right now that we need to, then we're not going to be in a position to weather that very well in the future. Opportunities, Mayor Commission for the Review and Tracking of Water Policy is completing its work. So that commission has done some very good work in looking at our current water policies. They've also looked at a lot of the things that we were talking about today that go beyond water policy and how we can implement those into a long-term plan. So we have that going for us that we can utilize as a stepping board moving forward. Stormwater recharge and green infrastructure. Again, in September, I think that's going to be front and center on some of the discussions that you'll hear about. But yes, it's a one water approach. It's about aquifer health, whether it be from green infrastructure for stormwater, whether it's looking at opportunity or evaluating true recharge efforts from septic. It's all of those mechanisms. It's that trying to get the aquifer health as strong as possible. And then you got the other side of it, where you have our regulatory requirements through ADWR and saying what water have we secured for our community. We have to look at that too. That's important too, because that's our supply. That's what we're going to be able to use now and in the future. $3 million grant for AMI. Yes, city was recently awarded a WIFA grant in the amount of $3 million for the implementation of these smart meters that help us detect leaks much faster, lets people know about their water usage so that they can make good real-time decisions on what's best for them and make sure that they're using the water as efficiently as possible. So those type of technologies we need to grasp and take advantage of. And that's just part of I put emerging water technologies up there. There's a lot of different things that are being looked at this point in time. Monitoring detection systems that can detect leaks much faster and help you understand how you can improve your infrastructure. All the way to direct portable effluent use. So I mean, there's a huge spectrum of things out there that we need to be evaluating one by one and seeing if they, what their potential value to this community is, and if they need to be part of our thought process moving forward. Challenges and sorry, goals for the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, so the city will need to continue a goal of ensuring a water supply sufficient to implement the city's general plan. Front and center on that long-term water management plan. It's the only way we're going to be able to do it is to get a plan in front of us that has all of those components in it, so that we can implement them, and then that works its way down into policy and everything else. Optimizing effluent supplies remains important, but again, I think it has to be a component of the long-term water management plan and examine all types of water supplies. Augmentation of city water supplies remains important, needs to be addressed in the long-term management plan. So we have to assess if we're going to use our available alternative supplies and our transport water. We need to do the work to determine if that's when it's needed and how much it's going to cost, how we're going to pay for it, and how we're going to implement it. Public education, outreach, involvement. Another, again, long-term water management plan needs to address this. Look at mission-critical components of that education outreach and how we're going to implement those. So, again, I think we've done a very, very good job of the conservation aspect of it. Maybe we need to concentrate more on the educational aspect of it. And the city will need to engage in forward-thinking regional partnerships, measurable goals, and attainable plans. So again, those regional efforts, we're all in the AMA together. We're all in the same active management area. We're all regulated under the same rules. Or, well, not under the same rules, but we're all regulated under the same, with the same goal of managing the water in our active management area and potentially getting to safe yield, but if nothing else, at least managing the water as sensibly and as strong as possible. This is a slide showing a representation from our water resource management model. This is a model that was created for the city in order to manage its allocation of water and to be able to understand at any given time how much water we're using and make projections, run scenarios on water usage. So the city's actively working with our consultant right now and trying to figure out how we can utilize this moving forward in a better manner than we've done in the past. We've populated the data. We have an understanding of where we're at, but the tool could be used a lot more efficiently, especially by our permitting group and the people who are taking in water service applications. So we've just recently started the process of implementing and pulling and extracting some of the data from the WORM, we call it the WORM Water Resource Management Model, into GIS layers that the permitting group can get, and they can get information so that they can make they can move water service applications forward in the proper way.
What is the black on the map? In the upper?
The black? Kind of in between the purples for the most part, or in between the green and the yellow?
Well, it's up towards by the airport.
Is that where the AD is?
I think it's just the density of the points. Yeah, it's kind of a shadowing going on there from the dots. Yeah, so the main, you're seeing the green dots are the current water allocation, yellow are committed, and won't get too much in, but there's a definition of committed that makes things a little complicated. There's a ADWR definition, but there's also a realistic definition, you know, things that we committed to, whether they meet the ADWR definition or not. So that's another aspect we're dealing with. And then you got your purple, and that's your projected. So it kind of it shows you where our general growth area is. I don't think that's a surprise. And yeah, utilizing the water resource management model moving forward is one of our strategic goals, and we want to implement it into the general plan and into the long-term management plan and have it be the tool that helps us get to those goals and get to those various milestones that we want to get at from those plans. And that's everything I have for you. So yes, questions.
Don Michaelman. When we do the general plan, this is a 10-year plan with strategies of what we view as a city should look at, and this is voted on by the public. In going through the strategies of your department, I know you're new to the department, percentage-wise, there is a large number of not implemented, and I'm curious on why they weren't implemented. Lack of staff, they weren't important enough, other things came up. You know, at least I like to know why we put a strategy out and nothing happens.
Well, I think all of those reasons that you just said have some bearing in that. Honestly, perspective changes over time in terms of what people think is important to the community and how they are going to get that to be driven. So I think, if we're making decisions just based on the information we have in front of us at that point in time, we kind of make spontaneous decisions. And I think there's been some aspect of that. By creating this long-term plan, and it kind of helps us weather those different time periods where you might have different opinions on how growth should go or which way growth should move, and how much where the water should be allocated. If you have your long-term plan that was based on solid logic and facts that are not going to change over time, or at least not going to change significantly over time, then we can use this as a guiding document, and hopefully it helps us keep on target. So I think one of the problems with the water element that maybe didn't make it go as successful as we would have liked over this 10-year period was the fact that long-term management plan wasn't implemented. If that had been implemented, it might have helped guide the rest of those things that weren't implemented and got them at least closer to being implemented. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your presentation. That's one of the better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Kay Sitto, Water Resources Project Manager with the City of Prescott. I'm going to be doing a presentation next Tuesday in front of the Water Issues Subcommittee that is going to look at our rebate program for fiscal year 2023. Now that's from July 1st, 2022 to the end of June 30th. And I've got discrete numbers for each one of the different rebate applications. And so I'm hoping that if you can, that you'll listen in next week. I'd also like to mention that I realize that I haven't been doing enough to promote our conservation webpage. I was at my own neighborhood in Yavapai Hills a couple of weeks ago, and I was there for a few minutes waiting to talk to somebody, and I said, "Do you know about our rebate program?" "No, we never heard about it." So I've been making signs that I've now been posting in the different subdivisions, and I'm going to be going over to the library, not today because this meeting's running long, but tomorrow I'm going to put up, I've got signs to put up around the library. Are you a City of Prescott resident? Do you know about our rebate program? And I'm going to be going around to different subdivisions around the city and getting permission to post these signs wherever I can. And I'll take some rebate applications along with me, along with some business cards. And so that's what I'm going to start doing to try to promote our webpage, rebate program.
When is that meeting? When and where is that meeting?
It's Tuesday, August 1, and I believe it's going to be here, and it's at 10 a.m. Or is it 9? 9:30? 9:30, I guess, and I'll be doing that presentation that morning. Well, I can always send out another announcement if we're wrong, but no, I guess it is. Leslie would know. It'd be 9:30. So anyway, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ted?
Gary?
Gary Warab, I would like to address Don's question. Having been involved with lots of different committees and with different mayors and city councils, this is the best representation I have seen in 17 years of residency in Prescott. I think what we're seeing is a community that's responding through its council and the council responding to the community, finally. I think that's the answer to that. We have had programs before that would have brought in many millions of dollars for improvements, more than just the water, for many other areas. And they went to, let's have another study. I've never seen the results of any studies positively. I'm extremely proud to be sitting here for the future of Prescott with the representation we have now on council. I think that's the real answer to your question.
Any other questions? So I wanted to thank you. I have two comments to consider in your long-term plan. I've talked to a lot of people on water. And going back to Kay's conservation considerations, a number of people, and of all different persuasions, there's a number of people who believe that we can live off the Little Chino. And I'd like to get a better educated assessment. Is that possible? Secondly, I don't feel real comfortable with what the rest of the gang is doing that are living off the same AMA, meaning Chino and Prescott Valley and Dewey. You have a comment up there in one of the goals, but it seems awfully loose to me. So I think Prescott can say to its residents, we're doing a pretty good job of managing water. But I don't know that the other people that are tapping into the same AMA is doing that. So maybe we ought to consider a little more robust linkage with them to get some measures in here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Now Tammy is going to tell us about the open house.
Yes. The next presentation. So last meeting, we went over the information that we presented. Make sure I got the right going. Oh, there. Okay. So we started going over these boards, and examples of what they're going to look like are on the wall. Back over here, I printed a couple examples. I got the housing one, and then I think it was open space, just to kind of see what it looked like printed. I had to do it for myself to see what it was going to look like, because it's one thing seeing on the screen or something and printed. So I took all your guys' comments that you all wanted to add on to these, and I added them on. So we can go through them and make sure I captured everything, but they were in your packets. So for public facilities and services, when you look at strengths, we have maintenance programs for roads. We have the courthouse plaza, our strengths, great police force and fire department, great library facility and programs, which you heard about last meeting, the airport, and the senior center. And challenges we have are difficulty attracting and retaining city staff. We'll keep hearing that. Lack of bike lanes, need more doctors. That's been pretty consistent from what I've been getting from the public. Older roads are poorly maintained, which, you know, we have a lot of roads, so they try to maintain them as much as possible with fundings. And then pilot shortage and other FAA changes, and you heard about that at the last meeting. So is there anything for public facilities and services that I want to add? We also want to leave space for the public to add. This is just to give them ideas of what we're looking for. So we're for strengths, or challenges. And if you think of something after this meeting and you want to email me, feel free to do that, and I can add them. I won't be printing these for a couple of weeks, so I'm just finalizing them. Okay. Next, economic development. So for strengths, we had opportunities for growth with vacant land for development and unused buildings. Mall property is ripe for redevelopment, which they have new owners, and we're kind of been talking with them. Expansion of airport services, and city staff are motivated and supportive of economic growth opportunities that make sense for Prescott, which you heard from the economic development folks. Challenges are existing commercial real estate does not meet modern needs for move-in ready space. Some of them have a lot of improvements they'd have to do. Lack of affordable workforce housing, need more businesses to create more jobs, and resistance to growth. Yes.
I'm sorry that I missed the last meeting. Could we add on the challenges the lack of a comprehensive economic development master plan?
Okay. Yes. Is there anything else?
Anyone?
Okay, we're doing good here. I told the guys we tried to get out of here by 5. So for land use, we have lots of space in North Prescott to attract new businesses. We know that's an area that we do need something, grocery store, restaurants and stuff in North Prescott to suffice the people up there. 1.8% growth rate over the last 13 years. We have the airport to strength, open space and trails, historic downtown as town center, and regional park. And then as challenges, we have protection of airport from surrounding development, transportation and circulation, lack of commercial services in North Prescott area, lack of housing options, hitting growth boundaries. We've hit our growth boundaries, and development of state trust land unpredictable, because they can come up at any time. Nothing? Anybody? No? Okay. Oh, we're doing good here. So we are going to have the land use, the zoning map. This is our current zoning map. It's up to date for all of our annexations and rezonings we've had up to date. And then we also have the general plan map. And then we also have another map that we can show that shows the Prescott Valley abutting up to the Prescott general plan to kind of see where they connect or where they are connecting right now, because Prescott Valley has encroached into our general plan area a little bit over the last few years. Yeah, we caught them. But we'll have this map available too. And the idea is that these will be on tables, because if we thought about boards, but they're easily knocked over. So we were going to have tables laid out and have everything on the tables, so they're easier to write on and for people to see. And then we also have the annexation history, which people do, and these are color-coded per century. It's actually a really good map for the public, and it shows up better when it's printed. That for people to actually see how the city has grown over the 10-year periods. So this is actually, we found to have a really good map to have so people can see that. And then for circulation, easy to navigate streets, community focus on prioritizing improvements, and State Route 89 and 69 provide easy access to adjacent communities, depending on the time of day and what light cycle you hit. This morning, hit all red lights coming on 69. It's not fun. Challenges, widening State Route 89 through the Dells. We know that's being discussed right now and looked at. Limited Uber and taxi service in the area. Increase from traffic from surrounding communities, because everyone has to live outside the city, so they are all coming in every day. State road funding constantly being swept at state level every year. Access to interstates, I-40 and I-17, that is a challenge, and no public transit system.
Tammy,
Yes.
is there any thought to put anything on there about the Sundog Connector Road?
No. I'm trying to avoid keeping that. That's a totally different study that we'll just keep that with SIMPO. I think that would be the safest bet.
Tammy, could you back up one slide? You said something about, you said some access to 17.
Yeah, that's a challenge. The challenge is access to interstates, I-40 and I-17. If there's an issue or, something that happens.
I think that's a big issue.
Yeah, we don't have really good access to the interstate or easily accessible to an interstate to move people. So we either have to go through Chino or Prescott Valley or south through those areas. And if we do have an emergency happen, we are kind of limited on areas to get out. So that is a challenge. The workforce housing boards, we kept them the same, but green stickers will go where the type of housing they'd like to see more of, or if they disagree. For accessory dwelling units, I did add on there for long-term rentals. And this is something we have been looking at for the accessory dwelling units, that we want to change it to allow them for long-term rentals. And then we added the box below for other ideas or housing products. So this will be interesting to see what we hear.
Have we, these are physical structures for workforce housing. Have we given any consideration to financial aspects of workforce housing?
Right now, we're just looking what kind of housing people would like to see more of, to try to, but that's something we're going to talk with the workforce housing group about, because they're looking into it.
I think there's two important. One, if we want to attract police and fire and teachers and have them stay here, they ought to have access to some capital growth, and they can't have access to capital growth if they rent. So I think part of the consideration should be some financial aspect in terms of salary, in terms of maybe getting them to a down payment where they're making mortgage payments instead of rental payments, so they'll stay here.
And these are different options, the workforce housing group. And we're going to start talking with them about stuff for that's a new element of the general plan. Yes.
Could you scroll up a little bit there? On the other ideas and for housing and so forth, how big is that box going to be?
It's down there. It's probably, what, a fifth of it? Or it's a pretty big box.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And we can add more paper. There's also, the paper folds out, so we can have more area for people if there's more comments. Right now, it's just folded over to be a certain size. And then we have the map here that shows the areas that allow for manufactured housing, and they're in the red. And when you print this out, you can see it a lot better. But there aren't all areas that allow for manufactured housing in the city of Prescott. But it is something that is also the state has been pushing every year to allow for additional types of housing. So we want to at least get looking into what other areas that we could have manufactured housing. And then open space and recreation, we went with that strength is regional cooperation, state parks grants, increased market share of ecotourism, public-private partnerships, state and federal partnerships. We have the regional trail system and private donors. And then challenges we have is competition for city funding, regional cooperation, maintenance of trails and volunteerism, state legislature actions, staffing levels, and open space and subdivisions may not be very usable. So.
Can we add another challenge?
Yes.
That maybe addresses the funding mechanism for the acquisition of open space when it becomes available? Because we have no funding mechanism in place in the city. And I think that needs to be addressed.
Okay, yes.
Sometimes property becomes available, but we don't have the funds. So we need to be saving so that when that property becomes available, the funds are already accrued and available.
Okay. Fund mechanism.
Tammy, what are the blank boxes?
They're just part of the program I was using. So they're just for, and then people could add information, more challenges. That's kind of the idea. We want to give them ideas and then they can add more to it for purchasing. And right now, that's just how the program, the one I used for these, had these boxes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if this would be under the recreation aspect of it, but just because it's in the news a lot right now, for challenges, management or the growth or the lack of growth for the rodeo grounds?
That'd probably be a land use.
Wherever it
Probably.
might be able to slide in, I think it would be good to include that as a challenge.
Okay. But we gotta see where we can put it. And then we'll have the open space trails map that was similar to what you saw from Chris and then when they presented here. And then we were going to do a Did You Know board, but what we're going to do instead is that we're going to have a Did You Know fun facts sheet to hand out for people, and it has a note page so they can write down notes when they're getting a pen too. And this also has the Plan Prescott website, the hello@planprescott.com if they want to send additional comments afterwards. And we have the QR code for the link. Because we were told we got bags, reusable bags.
Nice.
Actually, are pretty nice. Got these yesterday, and they have a big bottom. So great grocery bags for Sprouts. Okay, so thought ahead here. So, and we'll have these to give out along with the additional swag that we have left over from the other stuff. So we'll have this handout to give out to people when they check in, and with they have the notes page on the back to write stuff. And we also have this that we created, I think it was last summer, that it's an informational that these are the required elements, what needs to be in each element, and then these are the required elements, which we hit 50,000. So it's just an informational page. So as they're walking around and looking at the different boards, that they can know what we need to have in it. So these are going to be handouts there, along with the swag that we have, and in the bags.
So, Tammy,
Yes.
could you talk about marketing for this workshop?
What we've been doing?
Yeah.
So each of you guys got 20 handouts, flyers to post around town, hand out, and if you want a digital copy, I could email it to you. Eric Moore, thank you, Councilmember Moore, for doing a radio PSA. That got recorded, so we should start hearing that shortly. We do have opportunities to go on other radio shows through our public relations department. So I've been talking with John Heine, and they're also putting together some stuff to put up on our Facebook page and the website.
Good. The newspaper at all?
And well, I'll reach out to Cindy or to the newspaper too to get an interview or something in it over the next month.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Or we have to pay for that, and we're a little late on that. Yeah, they charge us for that.
This is Andre Carmen. On the required elements handout, are you gonna, could we add the current population so people see how close we are to 50,000?
To what? Oh, current population. Okay, we can look at that. We could try to estimate what our current population is.
Do we have a sign-up sheet for all the members here to be there at certain times?
Well, we start setting up at 2, and it starts at 3. So we're going to need you there the whole time. So if you could be there at 2 o'clock to help set up. So setup for the open house starts at 2 p.m.
It starts at 2 and ends at what time?
6. So we have between 2 and 3 is our setup. We have it advertised from 3 to 6.
So, Tammy, do we need to bring our own tables, or will it be enough?
They have tables there.
Okay.
Yep, they have tables and chairs and stuff there. So we'll set up a check-in table right as you come in, because we have the big auditorium, and then we have the banners and stuff to put to direct people, and then we'll have the table stations. So we have 5 stations. So if you guys want to be at a certain one, you're welcome to, or you can circulate and help. We'll kind of fill out which ones I know you'll be. But just try to walk around and see what people are saying and help answer questions. And then at 6 o'clock, we'll break down.
Yeah. So our not-for-profit has volunteered to supply snacks, and crackers, cheese, fruit, and that. So keep people happy there too. So.
Yeah, we're going to have staff with us to help be setting up too. So as long as you're there before 3, we do have already name tags that you're a general plan committee member. So we already have a lot of that stuff already made and ready.
I know the hardest thing is to project how many people you think will show up. Every time we do an event, it's like, but do you have a guesstimate how many you'd like to see show up?
I ordered 250 bags, so at least 250.
First 250 get a free bag.
Oh.
Hey, you give away things mostly like this right now, people will come. So,
Get it.
so that's kind of the overall of the open house, and then we'll see how many people show up, or if we need to do looking at another open house. But we are looking at one of the PR forms for when we do at the end, and we have the 60-day comment period in that. We are going to be looking at doing a PR firm to help us with that, with all the last stuff. So, but this will at least give us an idea of what kind of turnout. We are finding open houses are kind of hard to get people to, or get people to participate. So we're trying to get the word out as much as we can.
Yeah.
So any help you guys can do, if you need digital flyers or anything else, and as I get more information from our PR people, I will forward it on to you and the rest, everyone on my email address.
Gary's offer to Yodel has not helped so far.
Tammy? Talking about
Did you say you have an email version of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that on the website or what?
We do have the flyer on the website, but I have it actually. I have a digital. I could email out to the group.
That'd be great.
Okay.
George, I think his offer cost us half of our possible attendees.
I can leave now if you don't want me.
Okay, so our August, we won't have a meeting. We're going to have the open house instead. So for our next meeting, which is September 27th, we have environmental for green infrastructure presentation. And then police is also doing a short presentation on their strategic plan. We'll do a recap of the open house. We'll review responses from the survey and open house. I can start printing all that stuff and downloading after the open house. So what kind of survey, if we get an additional. We'll bring forward a chapter to start reviewing, get input. But as you're thinking about it or talking to people and you have any ideas or proposed language for an element or any potential goals, email them to me so I could get them to the right groups or whoever's updating. And that way we could try to incorporate it into the updates before coming forward.
And we'll have minutes from our June meeting to approve.
Yes.
Oh,
And this meeting.
what size physical space should we count on for our own section?
Well, it's a pretty big room, and we could spread everything out. And we only have, five or six boards, and then we have historic preservation too.
So 10 by 10 would be really okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if there's anything else you want on the agenda, please let me know. But that's going to be a pretty hefty meeting. So for our next meeting. Anything else? Think we're good?
Any further questions, comments, Rob?
So nothing you can think of that we need to bring ourselves besides ourselves?
Yourselves.
No?
Positive attitude. Get the word out. Let's show you how many people we can get.
Okay.
If not,
Yeah.
this meeting is adjourned.
Look at that, 4 o'clock.